Cold beer here. What's up, Tilly? Welcome back to another show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Had a great weekend, and then Monday went out into the Gulf and fished for some redfish. Caught a couple. Caught a sea turtle. Fun time. The sea turtle wasn't hooked; it just got wrapped up in the line. So,
Can you make soup out of that?
they have apparently a lot of sea turtles have like a herpes virus. So I don't even know if you'd want to eat them anymore. Plus, somebody's going to get on top of you about that eating of the sea turtle. So I'll just stick with beer and regular fish for now.
Good.
But how you doing?
I can't complain. I don't even know what day it is. You had a great week. Wait, it's Thursday weekend. So that was last weekend? Yeah. We're doing right now. We had a great Thursday night at the brewery. It's happening now. We did Botox, specialty burgers, and beer. And there was a bunch of people there for all of the above. It was kind of fun.
Nice.
My daughter came with me. She wanted to watch the Botox happen. She didn't get it. She's like, they do a shot in your face. She's like, does it go in your brain?
Hey, asking the important questions. Someone's got to ask these questions.
What I didn't understand about Botox, well, I didn't understand a couple of things. One, Botox is the number one selling drug on earth. Okay, think about that. That's crazy. Secondly, here's my conversations with 3 different women, including my wife. I don't even notice what foreheads look like unless they're like, wildly wrinkled. Like a wrinkled forehead is kind of like normal. Control. But these women, they think that the forehead should be like perfectly flat and stay still forever. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, it needs to not move. And I just started laughing. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know. So I don't notice. Like,
you're not paying a lot of attention to foreheads.
There's a lot of women that get Botox, I assume, and I don't even notice it. And there's a bunch that don't, and I don't notice that either. You're either, hey, listen, ladies, you're either fine or you're not. I don't know what else to tell you.
The Botox doesn't do anything to change.
Botox ain't helping.
Changed it, is what you're saying. Hey, as long as people are up there having fun, getting their Botox shots and eating some fine food and drinking some good drinks.
Yeah, it was. Listen, I said I will have church service in that brewery if it will get bodies in there on Wednesday and Thursday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Do what you got to do, right?
You bet. So what are we doing here tonight? What are we drinking tonight?
So if you're watching this, you can see I've figured out how to add a little scroll thing like we're ESPN along the bottom side. So it's from Marlowe Artisanal Ales, which is out of Connecticut, I think it was.
Yes, yeah. New Haven.
North Haven, Connecticut. Yeah. I saw this beer just on the shelf, and something about the art design on the can really I thought was interesting looking. Can't remember which way I got to turn it. So I picked up some. I sent one down to you when I sent you a box of beer, and it's the Eager to Share American Pale Ale. So 5.4%, comes in a tall boy can. 2 great things.
This is a very good beer. I'm a big fan of hazy pales. We've made several at the brewery. I like light beers, and this is very nice and hoppy, but pretty clean and balanced.
Yeah, good, and it's good summer beer. You get that good citrusy kick, and you have Citra and Mosaic hops in it. Both hops that if you go out and look on the shelf, you'll see those in a lot of beers, and there's a reason why. And especially in these types of styles.
Here's what's even more impressive. This beer's born on date is March 3rd. That's a long freaking time ago for a hoppy beer, and tastes great. Yeah.
It definitely has survived much better than I expected. Honestly, I had forgotten about this one until you mentioned it. You were like, was this a Marlowe one you sent me?
Yeah, because sometimes I grab weird stuff too, I just didn't know.
I don't even remember. And then I looked through and didn't even look at like, I was like, that. And then I like looked through a second time and I was like, oh wait, yeah, the Marlowe was one I sent. But it's got good flavor. And like you said,
it's eager to share.
Yeah.
I'm going to look up Marlowe.
Yeah, I don't know anything about them. This is probably the only beer that I've ever gotten from them. So I know nothing about the brewery. Just one of those random, when you go to the store and you look through.
Okay.
And you just see something on the shelf, and for whatever reason it catches your eye, and you pick it up and you just take it, and then you kind of forget about it. And then you gotta drink it. You gotta drink it. It's different.
So 12%. It's their most. Let's see what these guys say. They only got Instagrams. It's a brewery in progress. I wonder how long that's
so
been.
Here's what it says on Untapped. They got it just says brewery located in Connecticut, focused on lower ABV balanced beers, which I like. I like the idea of that. As long as you're being creative with the styles and not just doing, like the 4 basic beer thing. Be like, we have a wheat, we have this, and this, and you have 4 beers, and they're all kind of average. But if their other beers are anything kind of in the realm of like flavor wise, like this.
Yeah, I mean, you can make beers under 6% for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
So Marlowe, maybe somebody listening can correct me if I'm wrong. Most people don't comment unless they can tell you
something.
They gotcha. But it says brewery in progress, so I assume. But in the meantime, they're obviously Gypsy brewing. Most of what 12% Beer Project is Gypsy Brew. Yeah, I mean, this beer. I'm looking at a label of this beer we're drinking from October of 2019.
Okay.
So
they've been.
Yeah. So this beer's been out for, quite a while.
Yeah. It's interesting. Wonder when they first started making it. This has to be probably pretty close to when they did, honestly.
Yeah. And so a lot of times these guys, they don't have breweries, but they're brewers and they have a brand and they want to make beer. So they'll just contract somewhere and create, have their own brand that they make out of another brewery. Sometimes it's even the brewer that works at a brewery and they let them incubate there. Sometimes they'll let them incubate. They'll help fund it, and then they'll just take a % of the company. And that's not a bad way to go about it either, because
everyone gets something out of it.
Yeah, and it's just buying all the ingredients and all that stuff. Gets really expensive if you're, just kind of doing your own thing. And a lot of times, if it's at a larger brewery, they've already got all that shit, so it makes it easier.
True.
But we've had some 12% beers at the brewery from Nightmare. Nightmare is another Gypsy brewer. Joe has played in a band or is friends with the artist that does all of Nightmare's beer can labels. And so we've done those. Every beer of his is named after an ancient torture method.
You gotta have a shtick, and that's a pretty good one. I like that.
And he goes off and explains all of it, what that torture method is and where its origin is and how they what they did to the body. And dude, it's crazy. There's every beer is a whole story on what it is.
Let's see. Those are the ones I'd expect some cans have, or some labels have like a whole story. This one has a very short, like couple sentences on it about,
named after the
named
father,
after the grandfather and stuff like that. And so some of them, there's like a good story written on there. I feel like the Florida Man beer from Cigar City had like a pretty decent little exposition, if not story, on the label. And I appreciate that kind of effort. But that would definitely be a unique one if to have on the label an explanation and then some very artistic rendering, in some cases actual rendering.
Dude. And he's like super crazy, like 17% Imperial Stout, 10% double IPA. Like everything is wild.
Out there.
Nightmare Matricide. Let's just see if it says on here what it is. There's somewhere you can go read about. Well, shoot, we can just Google what the words are. But yeah, 12% makes them, or has their arms around a bunch of small and artisanal stuff. So that's cool. This is cool. Is well done.
This is a tasty one. So hopefully, if they're still working up to get the funds up to be able to have their own location or whatever they decide to do, it's definitely some good, tasty beer. I'll have to be on the lookout for some more stuff. It's Marlowe Artisanal Ales. I'll be on the lookout. I don't know how much we get down here. Like I said, it's the first one I've ever seen from them, so I don't even know.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they got a spot still. But looks like they're making a bunch of beers, so check them out. Marlowe Ales. Good stuff, guys.
Yeah, see it on the shelf. Eager to share, or any of the other ones. If you find some of the other ones, let us know if you're in Florida where you found it at and where you're at in Florida. Maybe we can track down some other ones too.
What else have we got tonight? What was there anything on your mind that you'd like to chat about?
I got a couple things. Obviously, we got some sports topics we can discuss. You're not a fan of a SEC team, but I am, obviously, Florida Gators. So I saw that come across the timeline on Twitter yesterday that Texas A&M and Oklahoma have put out feelers to the SEC about possibly joining the SEC once their grant of rights for TV stuff is up after the
Texas.
2024. Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Sorry. Did I say Texas A&M? I keep saying Texas A&M because in my mind they just joined, but that was like 10 years ago. But yeah, Texas and Oklahoma. What do you think about that?
Well,
what do you think that means for college football, I guess, in general, is the question.
I think that it's not I think it's foreshadowing. I'll put it that way. Whether it happens or not is irrelevant. College football is going to change. These Power 5 conferences need to secede from the NCAA. And really the NIL laws and its enacting is the first step in that, because there's going to be no way to control now what boosters do to pay players. Now they can do it publicly. Obviously, that comes with some reporting to Uncle Sam that's necessary, and players certainly need to engage lawyers and figure that out. And a lot of them are going to
hopefully the schools are helping out with some of that, because you're going to have some unscrupulous accountants and lawyers out there.
Yeah, but like that is not the school's job. It is a school's job to educate players, and
I'm thinking less about them paying for it, and I'm thinking more about them having a list. It's just like reputable people. It's really my thing. It's like the student goes through it all. Maybe have like an advisor or someone just to like talk to and bounce ideas off of, but just a list that says, hey, these are like, this isn't just a guy coming in off the street saying, yeah, I'm a CPA. I've got a master's degree in, business and stuff like this. And then
the tough part is going to be the players. The players' parents are going to arrange for shit. And most of those people are idiots. So they're going to end up screwing their own kids over and themselves with friends of the family and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It's really it's not that much different than what happens at the next level or when they're about to graduate.
Yeah.
You know,
except you're like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not claiming that like NFL players are like at that point super developed and knowledgeable about some aspects of the business side, but you know, when you're talking the difference between 17, 18-year-old and a 21, 22-year-old, it's a pretty big difference.
I mean, 21.
But there's still a different level of life experience.
There's a lot bigger difference
from those few years.
It's a lot bigger difference between 21 and 25 and 17 and 21. 17 and 21 still in college.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I was like, there's a certain level of like at some point.
Yeah, you know,
you advance a little bit. I'm not saying there's like a world of difference. Like it's not the biggest difference in the world, but there's a pretty big difference between 17 to 21.
I don't see much. The NIL laws and how the future of these programs change will be the real driver versus Texas and Oklahoma saying they're going to go to the SEC, because this isn't sustainable. You know, that now that if you're going to have if a Miami booster is saying he's paying everybody on the whole team, whatever it is, $6,000 a year,
$500 a month. Yeah.
A month. Yeah. Like if that Miami booster is saying that, you can only imagine what some boosters at like TCU that have some old oil money, or Alabama that have tons of them, that all these schools are going to have things lined up that are going to end up, it's going to creep its way into the recruiting. It's probably a loss for some players. They're probably still going to have to pay the players and their families cash or, you know, gift cards, or
there's going to be a lot more under the table money anyway that is going on regardless, because some of this related to taxes and other things is going to be there, but it's when you can also just do things above board and just be like, hey, here's some money to come to my car dealership once a year,
sign some,
and I'll give you $10,000 for that one appearance. That will change. And you know what? A lot of people will say that, oh, they don't know what they're doing. Nobody knows. It's not going to be good. Look, marijuana is legal in like whatever it is, 11 states, medical wise, and a lot of them. And CBD is legal. And trust me, nobody has their arms around it. Nobody. The government has no clue what they're doing. States have no clue what they're doing. We still don't have a real permit or license for our CBD-derived seltzer. And you want to know why that is? Because the State Department DBPR, which is hotels and restaurants and alcohol, they said it's not alcohol. That's not us. The Department of Ag, who otherwise licenses all the CBD products, says you already have a license with DBPR. Then talk to them. I got in writing from both these places. They got no clue, and that's how it's happening everywhere. And the feds are just watching it from a marijuana standpoint because they understand, I think, that they need to know what to do when they decide to legalize it all. And so that's just where this is. Oh, it's the Wild West. What the fuck? Let's just figure it out. And that's okay, because previously players were getting screwed they couldn't even be a fucking YouTube personality. They couldn't even be something that had nothing to do with their football skills and make money from it. It's the dumbest shit of all time. I always love that. I forget his name off the top of my head, and I'm sorry about it. The kicker from, I think it was UCF, who they said either shut down your YouTube channel, or
you can't play.
Or you can't play. And he just said, well, screw you, I'm just not going to play. And his YouTube channel now has like 2 million subscribers or something ridiculous. Yeah. But the thing was, is they're like, well, you're profiting off of, I was like, he's a kicker. he is not profiting off of his fame as a football player to make money on his YouTube channel, which at the time I believe only had like a lot of numbers, like large number for a YouTube channel, but not like in this stratosphere where he's at now. It was like 1,500 or 2,000 subscribers on there. So there was a complete lack of common sense when it came to it before, and there's going to be just lack of common sense and lack of like guidance and logical thinking on how some of this stuff should be done for the time being, at least as well. And it's going to take them a few years to figure out how exactly to regulate this and
so in the meantime, there's going to be players and not kids. I mean, shady actors in the world who are going to take advantage of it. And so that to me is what's going to break the current model for college football and basketball. And that's probably just those two that really should be, sort of moved aside. But ultimately those kids on those teams, they need a union. Now, under the current structure, it makes no sense. There's just too many damn schools, and a union would just get muddy. But if you had 60 schools in a new, thing, then a union is necessary.
And reasonably could be pulled off too.
And it's not because, although I will say, if they remove themselves, then they will have to pay the players. And that's where right now, when I see arguments on Twitter, and I just shake my head, where people are like, oh, look how much money Mark Emmert is making, but they can't pay the players. People don't understand what they're talking about. The schools and the NCAA, by the way, it's member institutions. That's what it is. It isn't like some organization off to the side while Florida and Florida State play. It is Florida and Florida State. Yeah. That's what the NCAA
Texas
is.
And Oklahoma and Ohio State, Notre Dame.
So you have there are federal laws that will not allow you to pay the football player $20,000 and not pay the women's swimmer $20,000. Okay, can't do it. It's not legal currently. Now it's kind of dumb the way that it's set up that way, and Title IX is a whole nother discussion as to how it's evolved. But the reality is schools can't pay those players, and the schools don't have the money because they're taking all that other money that they do make and they're spending it on buildings and other shit and other sports and equipment for other sports. They're funding all that other stuff. Yeah. So if you're like, no, you need to pay the players.
That's everybody.
They would be sued by women's athletes. And
everybody on campus would need to be paid.
It doesn't matter. Oh, you can't pay. I get this. The NIL is the right thing. That's the correct way to go about allowing folks to take advantage of their marketability. And look at what you see already. You got hot girls playing basketball at Fresno State making millions already because they got 2 million TikTok followers. And they got
5 million on Instagram, and they got fashion companies reaching out to them and doing modeling stuff.
They're good ball players. They're each averaging over 18 points a game. Like, they should be rewarded for notoriety, and they will be. And beautiful girls will be more so than some random dude that runs track. And that's the way it goes. But if random dude that runs track's got a cool thing going online or something else, he's going to be
even if so say it's like to use a Florida guy, former Florida guy, now he's out and going to be in the Olympics, but Grant Holloway, like, he could have been making some deals because he was very recognizable. Like, he's not like hot girl, like recognizable on Instagram or whatever, but he's recognizable from an athletic perspective. He could have been signing deals this whole time and maintained his amateur status and would have been making really good money, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, and it used to be that way, and it got muddy. Gabriella Reese, she was a volleyball player when my dad was doing his PhD at Florida State, and my dad's primary, I guess, study was with Cecile and the women's volleyball team there, and she was making money modeling, and she was. So there were something happened between 85 and whenever that got locked down, because there was a joke. I remember he told me that Gabrielle was driving the best car on campus, not any of the football players, and so I don't know what exactly happened, but when I remember reading about the Jeremy Bloom stuff, which is just gigantic piles of bullshit. This guy was he the skier? Gold medal.
He's the one I was thinking of when you started talking about. Then we started literally a couple minutes ago. I was like, I forget his name, but he was a skier. What did he played for Colorado or something?
Colorado.
And the NCAA was like, no, you can't do accept money from cash prize and stuff like
Olympic
this from
committee.
the skiing.
He's supposed to get paid to be a gold medalist by the country, and then of course he was front the cover of Sports Illustrated, shit like that. And can't accept money. Oh, and he was this gorgeous dude. And so he had some other shit lined up. And they're like, no. And he's like, fuck you. And he was a good ball player. I mean, I think he actually had a cup of tea in the NFL too. I'm not sure that it worked out after all that, but I think he did have to forfeit some, eligibility at Colorado. And I just think that's so stupid. So dumb. And this, now I'm sure he and some of these other guys, the kicker at UCF, they're looking back going, you fuckers. This is what we were all yelling about. And
he's exactly 2 days older than I am, Jeremy Bloom.
It took Florida and Texas to tell DeSantis remember when he had that presser in Miami with Corey Simon and a Florida and a Miami, all these ball players. And he was just like, dude, we are doing this. Okay. And here's why. Yeah. Because he's like, it's so interesting. I mean, DeSantis is young. He's my age, I think, actually, and a ridiculously smart lawyer guy. So those people who aren't like sports people, when they hear that a kid who has notoriety isn't allowed to make any money doing anything with his notoriety, because Congress is like this too. Congress or Supreme Court shit everybody 9-0 against the NCAA, right? Everyone's like, you guys are fucking these kids over, man. Like, don't come here with your nonprofit exempt nonsense. That kid should be able to go on the magazine and get paid. What is wrong with you? And that's ultimately what's happening. Florida drove it, Texas, and I think there were a couple others. And finally, NCAA was like, shit, we can't have Florida paying kids and other states not paying kids during, the recruiting process. You would be like, you can come here and sign a deal with Joe's car dealership, but you can't go to Georgia and do that. And they would not sign in Georgia. So the NCAA knew that, and they had to make that call. It's good.
It took a couple states putting these things forward, and for honestly, even just like Congress at the national level was starting to look at it too. And it was going to happen regardless. So
brush off the NCAA sort of, in some of these things they weren't, because I'm sure there's lobby. I'm sure for years the NCAA has had people on lock, in Congress. And that's finally people are like, no, dude, that's what you're doing is not right. And it's not even about paying the players. Nobody expects the University of Florida to have at the, registrar's office, a window for fucking football players to go get paid. Okay. No one expects that.
Yeah. And
we just expect that when my jersey's in the window that I'm going to get some fucking money from it. I mean,
or I can go sign a deal for $1,000 to go sign autographs for a couple hours at the sporting goods store,
right?
XYZ or wherever. Pick a place. So it was the right thing to do. We'll see how they figure out exactly how they're going to.
But that was a long way around. My opinion on conference realignment is okay, fine, but I think there's going to be a much larger realignment within the next 5 or 10 years. Yeah, generally speaking.
So I think the ACC grant of media rights runs until mid-30s. I think. 33, 32,
some dumbass agreement that Florida State agreed to.
There's going to be some big changes on. I've ever since the I want to say original, but like the conference realignment talks happened, and Maryland went to the Big Ten, and
West Virginia to the Big 12,
Texas A&M and Missouri to the SEC, et cetera, that kind of stuff. Ever since that happened, like the writing's kind of been on the wall for these big conferences, and there's going to be something big is going to have to kick off the next round of it, and it's going to be every man for themselves a little bit for a little while there to get settled into one of the big conferences. And then I see it the same way you were talking about. I see those big, I'm air quoting if you're listening and not watching, air quotes, big schools to split off those like 4 conferences, which I think it won't be the Big 5 anymore. It'll be the Big 4, because I think whoever
Big 12 will sort of evaporate.
If this were to happen, Texas A&M and Oklahoma, Texas, I keep saying Texas A&M, Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, that kills the Big 12.
Yeah.
Like it may exist in name, but not in prestige anymore. Because then you're left with like Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and Baylor.
Well,
and Kansas on a basketball side, but
West Virginia. So, I think that if that happens, I think the ACC is probably a very happy, sloppy seconds in that sense.
And I think
Notre Dame is a big player out here.
I think you'd see Kansas State ending up in like the Big 10 or something like that. Like
maybe.
From a basketball perspective, making basketball stronger there with Kansas makes a lot of sense to me.
But that's not how realignment happens, right? So
but
the Big 10,
if you're thinking like regional fits, like where else would they go? The Pac-12? It's possible.
The Big 10's usually pretty stingy about that, and they don't. And I'm pretty sure that they would not want both, because Kansas does not have the population.
Kansas State is not going to be. Kansas State, in my mind, gets left out in the cold. Kansas finds a landing spot. Kansas State left out in the cold, like they may end up making a Hail Mary play somewhere, but they're just not that appealing as a. Kansas would be the only other like program in my mind that has any.
The ACC has the most to gain from what's left out there, and that's Notre Dame. The commissioner's been very straightforward on his opinion on that they need to become a full member. Notre Dame doesn't necessarily have to. They don't have to until there's a large sea change that forces them to make something happen. But Notre Dame is the golden jewel out there. I mean, they got their own fucking TV deal with a network worth who knows how much.
There's the other thing that comes up, and we can move on after I say this because we've spent a very long time talking about this and other things. So it's not like necessarily just this, but part of me wonders how streaming is going to change the face of sports contracts and Texas and the Longhorn Network, because if they come to the SEC, the SEC is not going to want them to keep that.
No, and I think that that's already failed.
ESPN's going to want to make a deal for all of these rights, including the Tier 3 rights that Texas currently keeps on the Longhorn Network. And the SEC is not going to want to have, home games at Texas are now on the Longhorn Network. They're going to want to have it all as a part of the cohesive brand. So there's going to have to be some
I don't think that
by Texas.
I think ESPN.
I think Texas is used to getting their own way for so long as the big name that they're going to have to learn how to give a little bit, because
I don't think that ESPN will care, because Longhorn Network is ESPN.
No. They won't care, but the SEC as a cohesive brand will care, and keeping it all bundled together.
But the Big Ten Network is already known as sort of a failure, so I don't see that being that big a problem for Texas. A little slap in the face, but clearly if if this is real enough, it's like they have to know that. They have to know they're not going to go to the fucking SEC and keep the Longhorn Network.
Well, because then if they do that, then Alabama's going to want to keep their Tier 3 rights and be able to have their own separate deal, and it just makes the whole thing a big issue. So if that was like, if I was going to draw a line in the sand, it would be like, no, that shit's got to go away. Like, you can't have that and also be here. Because the SEC is very socialist, as it were. Everyone gets their equal cut of the pie, and that's why, as a conference, has maintained stability for so long, because everyone's benefiting off of that pool.
Everyone's benefiting off of Alabama. Sure, I don't agree with it.
That's just the way it is.
I don't agree with it because I believe people earn what they get, and in the way that it's not just the SEC, it's all the conferences are doing that. And as it sits now, you've got freeloaders who don't pull any weight. And I'm not even talking about Kentucky, because Kentucky's at least won basketball national titles. Like, I know basketball is a fraction of the value, but they've at least won national titles. There's a lot of trash, and Wake Forest in the ACC.
The state of Mississippi. Arkansas is good from a track and field perspective, but nobody cares about track and field.
Those schools
Vanderbilt
get the same.
Vanderbilt helps bring the overall GPA up in the SEC.
But here's where it bothers me is that, unlike the NFL, where the socialist nature, the fairness nature, has created incredible competitive balance, it's not like that in college, because you still have boosters paying players. And so those schools get the same amount of money every year, and they suck. They still suck. They always suck. Vanderbilt's always terrible. Okay. That's just the way that goes. And so I don't think they should get the money. I don't think they should get the same amount of money. I really don't.
When we're talking about the SEC, we're talking about a conference that has been around in its kind of current setup for like 70 years. And there's founding programs remaining.
Well, no, I mean,
Vandy was a founding program. I mean,
of course, there's founding programs of all these conferences, but it hasn't been running in its current setup for 70 years.
No, it's been like 40 years, 30 to 40, not including the expansion teams. But I will say this for that. Like, you can agree or disagree with the overall way it's run. It provides for stability, because teams don't feel like, even if it's not true, because there's clearly teams that lead and whatever. You got Georgia, and Tennessee is still up there in prestige for some reason, even though they've sucked for 15 years.
Because they're old and with a shit ton of boosters that pay a ton of money. That's why.
So like there's differences, but everyone feels like at the very least you're getting your fair share of it. It's not just Texas and Oklahoma taking 60% of the profits and everyone else, like, without anyone to play and without some of those other teams, that you don't really have anything. It's like Texas could go independent. Oklahoma could not. Oklahoma's a big name, but they're not. If they went independent like Notre Dame, they wouldn't make it. How many programs in the country would make it like that? Texas would. Ohio State probably would.
I think
Alabama. I just don't think they would.
Why wouldn't they?
I think without the conference, they don't have the recruiting footprint.
No, they're old enough. They've got Texas footprint. I mean, they're old enough that they're in there.
I'm just saying, like, you take away the conference, they're like where they're at because they have teams to beat up on. And
it would be tougher because they would have
their own schedule. I just don't see it being as big a draw. Like, are they going to have their own network, which is what you would need, or your own TV deal on the level of Notre Dame to be able to pull it off? I just don't think it's possible. There's not enough money out there
if
for
Oklahoma
the TV deal.
Went independent, they would be on TV every week.
Yeah, because they'd be playing someone with a TV deal. Regardless.
Someone would want to do a deal with them because
someone would want to do a deal, but what level of a deal would they get? They wouldn't get more than what they'd get in a conference.
They'd probably get the best
SEC
deal there. They'd probably get the
SEC
best deal there is.
The SEC's pulling in $50 million a year for each school. Like,
How many
Oklahoma's
people?
Oklahoma's not getting $50 million a year.
Well, Oklahoma, no, they're not right now.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, but if you take them out of that and put them independent, they're going to fall short of even what they're making now.
No, I think they get more.
Well,
they're splitting.
I agree.
They're splitting now.
Yeah, but they're
uh,
splitting because there's more being brought to the pie. Like, who are they going to play every year?
But they're one of the
that's
two
gonna
main
make them-
dogs. They're the main dog in that league. Texas has been
Yeah,
god awful
But
for
outside
a decade.
of, I just don't see it. I just don't see them making. I think there's only like 2 or 3 teams that could honestly make the same level of money they could make independently as they could in a league. And I think it's Notre Dame's an obvious one because they have been for so long.
Yeah.
Ohio State, I think, could do it. Alabama, Texas.
That's all about Florida State could do
probably
that. Florida State could do it. It's about branding. Miami could do it. It's about branding.
See now,
that's what it's about.
See now, you're being ridiculous. No,
those schools have national.
Could you pull it off? Could
those schools have national brands?
Could those schools pull it off? Just independent, like you're talking. Like, what's your
nobody
definition
wants
of
to
success?
be an independent, by the way. I mean, to have to schedule and do that shit.
What's the definition of success for being an independent school?
Well, it would have to be more money in a deal than those schools are currently taken from their piecemeal deal that they're getting in their leagues.
And you think Florida State would make more money than what they would make in the ACC?
If they were independent. Yeah.
I don't think so.
They're getting fucked.
I don't even think Florida would. Like, I don't think Florida State would.
Well, no, I don't think Florida would. Florida is not as big a national brand as Florida State is. And secondly, Florida makes way more money already. So no, I don't think Florida would or needs to. They make more money.
Now you're making ridiculous statements. Let's move on. We got some other things up on here. Have you ever thought of doing like a traditional, like British, like cask ale in a beer, like actually in the cask? Has that ever occurred to y'all? I've had like only 1 or 2 of them that were like out of an actual like little cask.
Well,
have y'all ever thought about doing that?
A lot of times cask style ale means something different than
just a cask beer. One that's been, aged in the cask and that level of like carbonation, air quote, whatever level that is. It's very moderated. Have you ever had one like that?
I think, but
cask
style beers don't necessarily have to be made in the cask.
I'm talking about one that's made in that traditional method, I guess, is what I'm.
Yeah, I don't think I have.
Because I knew a British guy. He did home brewing. He was very precise about what he thought brewing should be. If you ever meet a British guy, I'm not talking to you, but the audience of all hundreds of you that listen to this, if you ever meet a British guy who's really into brewing his own stuff, he'll be British person, very specific about what they think beer is. And you will not be able to escape that conversation, but you'll learn a lot about it.
Yeah. He wants to be kind of dark and boring, and
he made one
poured in a certain way.
He did it. Yeah, exactly. he made one and brought it up to House of Beer in Gainesville once, and had done like the cask and like the aging and like knock in the thing and then pour it off of that. Whatever he did, I drank a lot in those days. I still do, but and he made it, and it's not bad, but it's very different. If you've never had a beer that's been like aged in the cask and then poured from the cask, it's very unique. It's very like if you're used to like the level of carbonation you get in a beer now, it's a lot less. It's like a nitro, but without like a nitro beer, but without like the creaminess that like nitro beers generally have in the body of them.
Yeah, we used to do firkins. Some people do that. So that's like the current version of creating a cask style beer, because you just add stuff to it, and they're kind of tapped the same way. They're still a fucking mess to tap.
Yeah, it's a disaster.
Or we've done cask style beers because we have a beer engine, and so we low carbed a beer in a Sankey and hooked it up to the beer engine, and then
nice.
Then you get your low carb, really really pillowy foam pour. We did that one time, but here's the problem: no one likes that shit.
People aren't looking for it. You have to be like truly into like the snobby like beer thing to even be like, that sounds interesting, let's drink that. You have to be like me, where you're just like, I've drank literally every kind of style, let me go ahead and drink this. And maybe, I've always wanted to go to like England and try something that's from like a really renowned like place and try it in that style, just to get a real true idea of like what is. He made some good beers, don't get me wrong. I really was a big fan of his beers. So if he somehow stumbles across this, don't let me saying this make you think that I didn't like it. I thought it was good. It's just different, but I really want to try it from like the perspective of here's what the ideal version of this type of thing tastes like. Yeah, that's what I always want to know is
there's a few styles. The ideal
version. Yeah,
like that works for well. I mean, honestly, I think that it would work well with a double IPA too, just because of the body in the liquid. But for the most part, personally, I do like cold, and I like what carbonation adds to the profile.
You get that crisp bite, especially with the hops that like when you drink something, for the uninitiated, that's as lowly carbonated as that, but also has like a bitter hop profile, which is what you generally get with like some of these like British style things. It's, I don't know. It's just very, very different.
And imperial stouts, I like carbonation. I mean, because it balances off some of the sweetness and some of the alcohol.
And the creaminess, sometimes, like, because I'll drink things and the creaminess can be too much. Like sometimes, like I like a good like creamy kind of nitro style type of thing and sweetness and stuff, but it can be too much sometimes for me. And I get halfway through it and I'm like, I really wish this had like something different. I think that's what carbonation really helps provide, like a crispness throughout.
Yeah, there's something
that you lack otherwise.
It's something cool to have. It's just more of a pain in the ass to do than it is of value. I mean, we have a beer that's been Solera aging for 2 years coming out next week. It's going to be super, super cool. But, it's not going to be as popular as our West Tampa Light or Xander. So, and that's too bad because it's way cooler. It's just the
way it is.
The way it's going to be. That's what cask beer. Unfortunately, right now, cask beer is something that needs to find its way back versus something that's popular. And
I really think those types of unique preparation methods and stuff and methods of drinking really work within a context that makes sense. So if you go to like an Irish pub or something that's like a true like Irish like feel and pub, not like an American like Irish pub type tends to be, where it's like a sports bar with like some sort of Irish food, but then it also just has wings and burgers and stuff. It has to have that like real like feel of a place, and then you feel kind of like into it.
Yep.
And it makes a lot more sense within that kind of context. But those kinds of places in the United States exist, but they're not very common.
No.
To be like, here's our Irish pub. We have Guinness.
Although, man, there's a couple Irish pubs here in town. They're called Strand Hill Public House.
Mm-hmm.
They are really nice, and the owner is Irish as hell. So like, it's like upscale. Like when you go in, but they are really nice, and the bourbon and scotch that they got available is
top notch.
Obviously, the Irish whiskey selections are way better at those places than they are other places. But yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, America's got some of them. Yeah, they're mostly in New York and Boston.
Yeah, I mean, for obvious reasons. But they exist, but they're not as common. Well, we've talked about Northeast. We only have a couple more topics. We'll do one more and then maybe do the Florida man discussion. That sounds okay to you. But I saw this, and really, I just have to use this. We've talked about seltzer on here before. Boston Beer Company overestimated growth of the hard seltzer category. We've talked about that. It's more about the actual quality of the seltzer, probably. And their shares fell almost 20%. They make the Truly brand seltzers, and they say they overestimated that. If you were to go into a store right now and pick out the seltzer that you were going to bring home, I pick them up on occasion for my wife, and I'll drink one or two of them. Which one are you picking up? What's your, out of the big brands that are available? Because usually I'll go and I'll find whatever craft brewery made a seltzer, and I'll buy a 6-pack or 4-pack of those. But what are you picking up out of the big names?
High Noon. And I don't even know if it's counted in this category because it's a distillate. Yeah. I don't drink that. I think most of the seltzers out there are trash. I think White Claw is better than Truly. I haven't had many of the others. Most of the brewery ones are way too sweet. But High Noon is vodka, and it is clean. It is really clean. So I like that one. To me, the seltzer program, I mean, it
fills a niche,
but it's gonna live. But there's gonna be a lot of,
there's gonna be some change,
infighting, and I mean, when it comes to stock prices affecting how companies manage brands, like that's a way different ballgame than the majority of us are in. So, but that's what it's going to be for some of the big ones. But I think what is going to happen now is and I don't even know what they call High Noon, but like the mixed like the cocktail drinks, whatever they are, like canned cocktail drinks. I think that's going to take, or wine spritzers, because wine. So you can, there's wine alcohol too, right? The alcohol derived from grapes that people are using to make these too. So you're going to have a whole influx of spritzers, for lack of a better term, that are all distilled products. I've seen tequila, I've seen gin, I've seen vodka, I've seen bourbon, and then I've seen some wine, some fun wine stuff.
Yeah.
The seltzers can't possibly enjoy the trajectory that they have with all of that happening, because, look at, like I said, off air, I would love to see the data on High Noon right now, because that is everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere I go. And I'm a curmudgeon about the shit, and that's the best one. I'll drink that one because I don't have to tell myself I'm drinking beer. I'm like, oh, so it's a vodka. I'm having a vodka drink.
You can lie to yourself a little bit more.
4.5% vodka drink. Like, I actually I appreciate that. I've been saying to people who make bourbon or whiskey for years, I'm like, can you guys make a 30% bourbon? Because I think that would be delicious.
Can like you get the flavors, but not as much of the booziness, so you can actually enjoy yourself a little bit longer.
Yeah, do you know how 30% alcohol is a lot of alcohol, okay? You don't need to burn my throat off for me to enjoy a really well-crafted spirit. And I think there are artisans out there who could do that. And I don't understand why it's not happening. I guarantee you it will at some point. And I don't know when that's going to be, but it will, because people will be like, okay, we've made enough whiskeys. What's different? What can we do that's different? And right now, it's distill it all the way down, cut it down to like 5%, give it the flavor profile, put it in a can, and it's a freaking hors d'oeuvre cocktail mixer, you know?
Hey, there's a market for everything. All it takes is the first person to test the waters, and then everyone else follows up. And
if I could distill, I would do it, and I would make a ton of money, I guarantee. Because people would be like, wow, that tastes really good. You can sip it. It can be a mixer. You can have it, and it doesn't it's not offensive. Like, I'm gonna choke.
Yeah.
Like there are good bourbons
out there. It's accessible.
You're like, dude, what do you need it to be 110 proof for? Why? I can't swallow that. That's like fire.
Well, I know there's some stuff regulating what you can call bourbon, depending on ingredients and certain marks on there. I forget exactly what they all are, so you may have to call it something else. But
yeah, it's just whiskey.
It would be an acceptable whiskey.
Whiskey, American whiskey.
A lower ABV American whiskey that's 15% less than something else, and you get some of those flavors, but not as much. Session whiskey. Hey, it's $1 trillion idea. Nobody stole this. We said this at 58 minutes, 10 seconds on this recording. We got it right here. So when we come out with a session whiskey, we're going to let everyone know.
Oh man, you could do think about drinking a wine. Okay, wine is anywhere between 12. Some of the crazy ones are 17%, but 13, 14%, 15% for California stuff is pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
That shit, that will fuck you up. And when you have a glass of it, it's got a body, and it's you could make a 15% whiskey.
Oh, easily.
It'd be good. It'd be delicious.
I mean, hell, half of the 15% barrel aged beers I have just taste like whiskey anyway, so I know it's doable.
I know. And then think about how much further a distilling goes, because you know how it takes a lot of liquid to get to distill down.
Distilling, and it truly is the definition of it. Yeah.
I swear to God, I got to make this business. I got to do it.
All right. Well, we got it marked. It's at around 58 minutes. We got your.
Tell anybody out there that wants to invest in this business. You hit me up. We'll make it happen.
All right. Well, let's move on to the our Florida Man Hold My Beer section. Do you want to take this off?
I mean, I think I read the one that you sent me about the alligator abuse.
Yeah. I'm not trying to laugh. Abusing animals isn't funny, but the story in itself and the way he said it is pretty funny.
Let me say something first and foremost. I don't like alligators, okay? But I still don't like purposeful abuse. It would be one thing if someone bashed an alligator's head in because they were trying to survive, okay?
Or they were eating their dog or something.
Yeah. And it's another thing to I can't, by the way, I can't pull up the full article, but it's another thing to do what this guy did, which appears to be
so I'll read. I found the
whipping this thing around, hitting it in the head, stomping on it,
and tried to throw it onto the roof of a cocktail lounge located off of A1A. This was in Daytona Beach Shores, Florida. And he told the police officers who arrived to arrest him that he was teaching it a lesson. Which is the funny part of that story.
The gator, boy, they're an evolved creature now.
Yeah. I don't know that this lesson's going to stick. Alligators tend to be pretty set in their ways. Must come from the millions of years of evolution keeping them pretty much the same. So I don't think necessarily that the lesson is going to stick. There's a man from Homestead, Florida. They took him into custody and charged him with possession and injury of an alligator, unarmed burglary of an occupied dwelling because he stole the alligator from a mini golf course.
What was the mini golf course doing having an alligator?
Apparently they had several golf course or mini golf courses, and they have like a little enclosure where people can feed the alligators.
Oh, that's some Daytona Beach shit right there now.
That's some Florida stuff right there. It's definitely Daytona Beach for sure.
Hey kids, come over here, feed the alligators.
Surprisingly, this 32-year-old who was beating up on an alligator could not afford an attorney. So he was still in jail when last updated.
It's a baby alligator too, right? Like a little 4-footer.
I mean, yeah, it was a little small one, 3-4 feet, something like that. So
that's just flat out rude. I'm not a fan of that.
Nah, I mean, just live and let live. Honestly, I don't think an alligator should be living on a mini golf course cage anyway. But the proper way to break them out is not to break them out and then beat them up and try to throw them on a roof of a cocktail lounge. If you're really all that about it, just go find a lake and let it go. But yeah, so there's your Florida man story. I did see, and not one I sent, is a more cheerful Florida man story of a man that bought his lottery ticket from Publix, wherever he lived, and won $23 million. So wherever that dude is, he's living the good life now for at least a year or two until he blows through all his money. Couch
cushions, Publix, you got it.
Hey, somebody's making money. That's good for them.
Well, let's close this out because I got to piss. And
we're going to close it out, and as we close out, we'll say congratulations to the Milwaukee Bucks, a great beer city, well known in the United States for being a beer city. So ties in well with both the sports that we sometimes discuss and beer. So congratulations to the Bucks.
Yeah, I'll say fuck Wisconsin, and then I will congratulate the Bucks. And Giannis, that's a hell of a run for him. Really, really impressive dude, and impressive run. And I know luck is a big part of it. A lot of players were hurt and a lot of stuff happened, but he wasn't.
Luck's a part of every title. There's nothing.
He made it happen. He was down 2-0 too, and he's still against a better team, in my opinion. And he just put them on his shoulders, and that
willed him to a win.
Congratulations.
Final thing I wanted to say. Obviously, I'm a Gator fan, and you're a Florida State fan. But thoughts out to Bobby Bowden. I know he's dealing with terminal illness now. I mean, he's had a good run of life, but he's a legend in the sport, and he's a human being. So thoughts out to him and his family, and wish him the best.
I'm sure we'll have some time to address that, unfortunately, in the future. I'll tell some of my stories with Coach and Coach's family as well. And but yeah, hope he's just chilling, feeling comfortable, and
from what I read, he said he was at peace with it, and I
mean, I don't know what they're not telling us what it is. Like, the dude's 91, he had cancer. He's like a terminal diagnosis. Life is a terminal has a terminal diagnosis.
Yeah.
And he's at the end of it. I don't know.
I assume there's something that's a little bit more immediate if they're saying that.
I would too.
Within the next few months, possibly even.
I know.
Because I don't know why else they would like he's 91, and I no disrespect at all. This is not what I'm going with it. No disrespect at all. He's made it to 91. That's a good run. I don't expect to
100%.
make it to 91. So, honestly, I'd be kind of surprised. I'm not saying I'm not going to. Anything can happen, but so that's a good run. So, no disrespect there, but hopefully he's at peace with it. Hopefully he gets some time with his family in his last days, and they get to spend some quality time with him before he's gone. I would hope anybody with their grandparents who you have some sort of pre-warning, enjoy the time with the people you love, and all the best.
Yeah, man. They got a great family. They'll get together. Wish all of them the best, and we'll see what goes on from here.
But don't get me wrong, it's still Florida State.
NCAA, give him his wins back. You're gonna give Paterno his wins back. Give Coach Bowden his freaking wins back. You numbskulls. Jesus Christ. The wins happened. Did they happen or did they not? They happened. Okay.
Well, we appreciate y'all tuning in. Thanks for joining me again tonight, Matt. Another good long episode. We need to find someone else to interview here soon. I've been wanting to do some more of that.
All right. Yeah, we'll get somebody. All right, fellas. Everybody out there, be good, be nice, drink beer.
Drink local.
Cheers.